complexities and will undoubtedly enrich the ministry's policy outcomes, enhance accountability, and promote more inclusive governance.
Constituting the newly inaugurated Ministerial Advisory Board are the Foreign Affairs Minister, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, as its chair, Ambassador Ramses Cleland, Dr. Edward Kofi Omane Boama, Dr. Kaisel Ato Forsen, Honorable Elizabeth Ofosu Ejare, Francis Kojo-Kwarteng Arthur, Simon Maji, Professor Kwamena Ahoy, Ambassador Agnes Agri Orleans, Ambassador Chris Bodo, Honorable Helen Ajwa Ntoso, Honorable Quinsta Mami Pokua Soya, and Ambassador Philbert Johnson. Speaking on behalf of the members of the advisory board, Professor Kwamena Ahoy, a former Minister for Foreign Affairs, expressed gratitude for the confidence reposed in them and pledged the board's commitment to providing objective and impactful advice to support Ghana's foreign policy direction.
Mr. Minister, whenever there is government change, there is always policy change, but there is never a change in the national interest. So those of us gathered here in the Ministerial Advisory Board are very well advised that there are certain matters that are of national interest and which must guide us all the time, irrespective of the government that is in power. And it will be important for us, maybe at some point, to try to identify what these national interests are. I took note of your last statement.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.
Good morning and thank you very much for joining us on Pan-African Television. We're broadcasting live from our studios at Abelengpe. We are live on TV, Pan-African Television. We are live on radio, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. This is the mother of all talk shows, Alaji and Alaji. It's 17 minutes past 9, and of course, last week I announced to you that 9 a.m. today, the family of Ambassador Sampi will commemorate his or hold a 1 week observance for him, and that is happening in Sakaman on the George Walker Bush Highway, and of course the Page Event Center. The venue is the Page Event Center. Starts at 9 a.m. Oh, actually 8 a.m. from what I'm seeing here. Started at 8 a.m. So it's already started. So if you're close by, you can just put your earphones in your phone and move to the Page Event Center so that we can commemorate someone who was very dedicated to this show. And he kept, and constantly, one of the things that I became familiar with when it comes to Ambassador Sampi is that anytime I bring him on the show, one, he will remind me of the role he and others have played in bringing the show to the level it got to. And constantly wanted, in fact, at some point, he never misses Alaji and Alaji. If he has to choose between Alaji and Alaji and any other show on any day, it will always be Alaji and Alaji. May he so continue to rest in peace. Today's show should be rightly called Three Journalists and a Surveyor, because that's the panel we have this morning. Now they all occupy different positions, but they are all journalists. And of course, the senior most of all of us is Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. That's what he does now, but occasionally he finds time to write, because it's difficult to move away from it. And of course, it's on the show this morning. Alasan Esuhini was the host of this show for many years. Now, he has the duty of helping Honorable Kwame Agboja to deliver the year of roads that we never saw. He's Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways now, and he's joined us on the show. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Nice to see you.
Always a pleasure.
How is your new road treating you?
Yeah. Deliver the roads that we never saw.
We pray so. Anyway, we'll also be joined by Deputy Presidential Spokesperson, Shamima Muslim. Of course, I don't need to tell you about her history in journalism too. And then the surveyor I was talking about, Solomon Owusu, is a member of the Movement for Change. It's always a pleasure seeing him on the show. I am Sena Nombo. And once again, welcome to today's show. Your comments are important. Do use the text message or WhatsApp message platform and send us the text or WhatsApp message. We'll read it as we go along in the show. If you're watching us via Facebook or YouTube, use the comment section and share your thoughts. This morning, we're talking about the demonstration that was held by the New Patriotic Party and some allies of theirs against the suspension of a CJ. It seems that's the only thing they want, that suspension should be revoked. And throughout this week, Mr. Pratt has been, something he famously said on this show has been on my mind. He asked a simple question. Who says that every time you do a demonstration, you should submit a petition? And I think perhaps he was proven right when they got to the Jubilee House and they submitted a petition, and the person to address them was Mr. Stan Dogbe. Anyway, we'll talk about that. And then we'll move on to 120 days of President Mahama in power. For the first time, the government comes to power, offers a social contract, things they want to be held accountable to after 120 days in office. I'm sure you've seen that list of 25 things they said they would do, and there have been many comments on how well they have performed. Well, so we'll talk about that and then conclude with the launch of the Code of Conduct for office holders under this administration. The President himself set an example when he actually donated 2 cars that were donated to him or gifted to him to the state. And then he's also sent a warning to those who have not actually declared their assets. First thing that happened, because he set a deadline, and the deadline had passed, and he found out that some appointees had not declared their assets. Those appointees are to donate 3 months of their salary to Mahama Cares, in addition to the 1 month that every appointee has to give to Mahama Cares. And then they were supposed to declare their assets within 2 days. That has passed. We're waiting for what the president will do, because he's indicated that those appointees should consider themselves fired if they haven't done that. Well, so those are the issues we're discussing this morning. Like I said, your comments are important to us. So let's start with the issue of the demonstration. And I start from the man in government. Honorable Alasan Esuhini, who is also a member of Parliament for Tamalino. Honorable, good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning to Kwesi and Solo. It's a pleasure to share this platform every time the opportunity presents itself. And let me start by sending my heartfelt condolences to the family of Ambassador Sampi. To be sincere with you, Senna, it's still something that I struggle to accept. I see the flyers, I see the family, you know, in videos and pictures go to announce the death, and I still think it's a lie. I still think that it's a bad dream. I mean, but I know that he's resting with his maker. He put his all into the NDC, loved the party without reservation, and worked for it, you know, in every way that he was able to. And I think that the party needs to celebrate, you know, his legacy. And once again, my heartfelt condolences to the family of Uncle Sampi Ali. And you are right. I mean, even when I was a host, I noticed that every time he had a choice to make between Alaji and any other program, his choice was always Alaji, you know, and we are very happy and proud of the contributions that he made for this show. Sena, demonstrations, yes, they are part of our democratic rights, and any organization, any group of people are permitted to engage in demonstrations, even if the reasons for their demonstrations are unreasonable. They are still entitled to organize demonstrations, and I'm happy that this time around we did not see the drama that was associated with the intention to organize demonstrations in the past. Court injunctions, you know, limitations of where demonstrators can converge and can't converge, you know, intimidation by security officers. I'm happy that, you know, this demonstration passed without any of those shenanigans that government in power or parties in power in the past deployed to frustrate people who wanted to carry out the civic responsibility of demonstrating against or for a cause that they feel strongly about. Having said that, I wonder what the MPP wants His Excellency President Mahama to do. I mean, I know that they are made up of very, very good lawyers, astute lawyers, they call themselves. And so, if President Mahama has done anything that is against the laws of this country, why are they not challenging it in court? Or it is just politics that they want to play? Because clearly, when you look at the Constitution, President Mahama has been following the Constitution when it comes to the case against the Chief Justice. And you see, Senator, I'm not a lawyer. I just read the law on its face value because it is written in English. The question of the suspension of the Chief Justice, if you read the provision on the suspension of the Chief Justice, you wonder. I mean, if your comprehension is not bad, if this indeed is a sole prerogative of the president to suspend the Chief Justice. I mean, the provision is such that it has to be in consultation with the Council of State. He appoints, you know, a chairman to look at it. Then it says that the committee appointed under Clause 6 of the article shall inquire into the petition and recommend to the president whether the Chief Justice ought to be removed from office. Now, the relevant provision is, I think, 6, or is it 5? 1465.
6.
Yeah, is it 6?
Yeah, I think 6.
Yeah. Acting in consultation with the Council of State, I know where the suspension is, it's supposed to be a recommendation, that's how I get it, of the Council of State. It's not a suo motu decision of the president. It's not like he takes a personal decision that, look, after looking at the petition and having assessed it, I think that you should go on suspension. It is not his prerogative. It's not something that he is seized with. It has to come from the Council of State, because the petition goes to the Council of State. They assess it and they return it to him, and that is where they recommend a suspension or otherwise. And so if they recommended a suspension and he's carried out that suspension, really, if you are demonstrating, then maybe you should be demonstrating against the Council of State, or maybe the Council of State and the President. But I get it. I understand that this is politics. This is much ado about nothing. This is playing to the gallery. This is a party that has lost an election so embarrassingly that they need to engage in acts that will, give hope to their supporters who are so, embarrassed and ashamed of the performance of the party in the last election. But what they are doing may be motivating the core base of the party. But if you are a fair observer, you will notice that it is putting away fair-minded Ghanaians from ever even giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because only a few years ago, you were in office. And owing to your abuse of power, your corrupt nature, your arrogant nature, you were handed the most embarrassing defeat any party has ever faced in the last election. And so when all of a sudden you begin to demonstrate and create, and become a nuisance against some of the things that you were doing, then people begin to think that you are dishonest. People who are fair-minded begin to think that you are not deserving of consideration, especially even if this current government fails. So I think that they may be achieving their aim of, inspiring their base, giving them hope and letting them feel that the party is still alive. But they should be concerned. The leadership of the party should be concerned about the average Ghanaian who is not really committed to any of the political parties, but assesses issues based on fairness, based on, what they think is right. Because clearly what they are doing is not sitting well with many Ghanaians who are fair-minded. Look, I don't even want to go there, but you have heard people ask the question of what happened with Charlotte Osei. What happened with Charlotte Osei? I mean, didn't she also have the same rights that they are preaching now? And what did they say? I heard Professor Michael Quaid this week, question that hypocrisy from their own party. I mean, what did they say? How did they approach it? In fact, some of us at the time made the argument that the president was not to be an automatic conveyor of petitions. But they shut it down. I mean, but clearly, if you look at the Constitution again, I still feel that the president is not supposed to be an automatic conveyor of petitions. But they strongly argued against that and established the tradition that the president must automatically forward every petition against any of these officers to the Council of State. And so it has been established. And now when that thing you fought to establish is working against you, even in a better situation, in a better scenario, you want the world to hear you cry, your cry. I mean, clearly, your hypocrisy is what they will see, and not the agony that you pretend to be feeling. So I think that His Excellency President Mahama, so far as the Chief Justice is concerned, and what are the issues? I mean, the petition, it's there. We have the law, the Constitution, and the President is going according to what the what the Constitution requires him to do. And the courts are there for them to challenge any of his actions and his decisions. And at the end of the day, if the Chief Justice is not guilty of any of the issues raised in the petition, I don't see His Excellency President Mahama, being unfair and doing anything outside the law. What people must understand is that President Mahama comes to the presidency with a lot of fairness, with commitment to the rule of law. And it's demonstrated even in how he deals with people who are supposed to be, if you like, his associates. You recall that this is not the first time President Mahama is taking an officer through this process. The last officer President Mahama took through this process was when he was president before 2016. And it was the Shraj boss, Loretta Lamte. This was a woman who was appointed by his predecessor, his boss, Professor Atta Mills. But when a petition was raised against her, he treated it fairly. And at the end of the day, discharged his duties as expected of him under the Constitution. And so nobody should think that in this particular case, he will do anything short of being fair and short of being within the law. He is not like them. He is not going to act based on trump-up charges, and he's not going to act outside what the law requires him to do. I am confident that at the end of the day, if the Chief Justice is exonerated, His Excellency President Mahama will have no business, recommending for his, continuous stay in office. And I'm also confident that if at the end of the day she is found guilty, he will have no qualms at all recommending, her removal from office. But what the MPP is currently doing is simply lending credence to the widely held notion that she has been doing NPP politics as Chief Justice. There's no other evidence now beyond what the MPP is currently doing. It has proven beyond any reasonable doubt now that on the bench she was playing MPP politics. Otherwise, what business do they have making this legal process such a political warfare? What interest beyond partisanship do they have? Because it is not even the only legal matter in this country. Assuming they are concerned about the laws of the country, they are concerned about, judicial independence. It is not the only legal matter that President Mahama is dealing with currently. So, if they have decided to prioritize this one the way they are going about it, then at the end of the day, they will leave no one, and I believe so far they have already left no one in doubt that she was put there to play MPP politics, and they feel threatened that her removal will mean a hit to their political agenda on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, talking about the matters in court concerning that, it was the one that was sent by the MP for Otafo, President Sefua, was heard this week. First, the very first issue that was raised by his lawyer, Godfrey Ebuadame, former Attorney General, was one, I don't think that you should be presiding over the matter. And he was referring to the acting Chief Justice, who was there only because the Constitution requires that he acts in the absence of a Chief Justice. That is Justice Bafobone. The court disagreed with him. His assertion was that his argument was simple, that he stood to benefit. In fact, he has benefited from the suspension of a Chief Justice. The court disagreed. Then they went into the matter itself. They also raised matters about the recomposition of the panel, but when they went into the matter of the injunction itself, the court ruled 3-2. 3-2. Majority 3 against their application. We're waiting for because they will file their reasoning. I think 21st May or something. They will file their reasoning then. Then we'll know why to think that that there should be an injunction on the suspension, and 3 disagree with those 2. So that's also a matter before the court. Mr. Usu.
Good morning. Honorable Minister, to Comrade Pratt, the Socialist Movement of Ghana, and to our presidential spokesperson. Once we are with the presidential spokesperson, then everything that they promise will have to be explained on this platform, so that we are all on the same page and we are not left in any doubt. Let me also associate myself with a statement that was made by Honorable Deputy Minister that the family of Ambassador Sampi must take heart. And sometimes when you are sitting here and you are imagining, you know, we met a couple of times, not even a couple, a lot of times.
Yeah, many times.
In those heated periods when I was in the MPP, sometimes you come and you want to hit me in this chair. Why are you doing this? So I'm a bit emotional about it, and right after this program, I'll find myself there to also go and commiserate with the family and treat each and everyone that is close by to go and show appreciation, particularly lovers of this platform who have enjoyed. If you're enjoying the program today, he has played a huge role in making sure that it has gotten to where it is. May his soul rest perfectly well wherever he finds himself. Senate demonstration by the New Patriotic Party. I believe the very reason why they embarked on the demonstration should have been the reason why they should continue to allow the process to flow. Because where did they derive their authority to demonstrate? The demonstration is allowed by the Constitution. Is that not the case? Article 21 is so clear that every Ghanaian can demonstrate, even if you cannot, as it were, impregnate your wife. You can demonstrate against the Ministry of Health for not bringing in tablets that can help you to impregnate your wife. So demonstration is enshrined in our Constitution. And to that extent, I don't have any difficulty when any group of people wants to express their frustrations. So if you derive your authority from the Constitution to demonstrate, and the President also derives his authority from the Constitution to do what he's doing, then it makes nonsense of the very demonstration that you are doing. I hope you are getting where I'm getting to. So your power to demonstrate is from the Constitution. The power to also allow the process to remove the Chief Justice is also derived from the Constitution. So no one is wrong anyway. But then you look at it with a second view, and you agree with the MPP that yes, in the days leading to the demonstration, they are shifted from the fact that what the President was doing was not constitutional, but rather to the fact that they were really doing politics. They said it on several platforms. I heard Richard Anyaba say that the politics comes before law, so they were doing the politics. So in that, to that extent, I can, as it were, agree with them that it's not law, but it is politics. And it is politics because you and I know that you can't go into an election and suffer such a hefty defeat. Those of us with the movement for change, we are in higher spirit than them. I'm very surprised that you had 41%, some are saying 38.2%, but I want to go with the 41.75%. And you are not in high spirit. We had less than that. But because our message as a movement resonates with the people everywhere, we believe that if it wasn't good today, tomorrow, the Ghanaian will see the need to vote for my candidate. I've told you that very soon our provisional license will be available as a political party, and we shall see what will happen in the political space. So they had to do politics. You remember, they were also the party, after suffering this hefty defeat, started embarking on what? A thank you tour, which turned into a starving tour, throwing of missiles. Now accusations are flying center, left, right. People are accusing Kennedy Japan of having taken more money in the days in government, and even the last days of living government. He's also firing back that it is Bawumia that is pushing Abronya. Abronya has been accused of taking money from Kennedy, and so a lot of things are happening. We are reliably informed, if I say we, within the circles, that the former president, Nana Akufo-Addo, has also withdrawn his support from Bawumia, creating further problems for the party. So if you are a member of that party, you want to have a central point, something to actually galvanize the base, to bring the party back to where you believe it has to be. And that is why, with the least provocation, they want to embark on a demonstration. Either than that, why would a party that is struggling to pay its workers at the headquarters? There are not many. The workers at the party's headquarters will not be more than 70. Only 3 months from office, they are in arrears. So if you have money, wouldn't it be fair to be using that money to take care of your own staff? They have spent more than 5 million Ghana cedis on this demonstration. And believe you me, this is what people do to feed in opposition. Small thing, let's go on demonstration. If you say let's go on demonstration, are you not going to bring logistics in there? Vehicles are going to move human beings from one point to the other, so money will be in, water that you buy, food here and there, people put their margins on it. So as we speak, those that led the demonstration, some are smiling all the way to the bank. And why would I have a problem? People have been smart in that direction. Now, the one thing that freaked me with the demonstration was a young man. I don't know whether he had taken red or something. The guy couldn't see his left or right. Was saying he joined the demonstration because he needed jobs. He wanted to work. And he was called that he should come and join. After the demonstration, he will be given employment. The very people that were promising you job, they just left office. So clearly, that wasn't something that I would have taken part in there. The Constitution is very clear. This business of lawyers trying to, as it were, make all of us look stupid. Those of us that are not, as if we cannot put words together and understand the meaning. From today to go, they must make it clear that it is only lawyers that can read this book and understand. So that if I've never been to a law school, I will not even go and buy the Constitution. If it is for only lawyers, there must be a law that when you are going to buy this book, you must show your law. They have what do you call it? Is it
professional certificate.
Professional certificate or numbers before they give it to you. So long as this Constitution is sold to every Ghanaian, and so long as it is written in simple language for everyone to understand, then you cannot leave this interpretation only to lawyers. And every lawyer that speaks to the interpretation of this Constitution cannot be the opinion of the entire country, because you also need a judge. You cannot be a lawyer and at the same time a judge in your own office. That is why all of us are entitled to interpret this Constitution the way we see it. And if there is anything in that, after all, this is written in English. Is the English language our mother language? Then the best people to interpret this book will be the Brits, going back to the imperialists. You see how we are having difficulties. Article 146, Senna, is so clear. So clear. And for the avoidance of doubt, I think we need to read for a lot of Ghanaians don't have this Constitution, and it's problematic. I think it's one of the things that the NCC beyond, and this is within the government's own purview. Now you are sharing what part, which is a good thing. Maybe we must begin to give students the Constitution of this country free of charge. It must be part of things that we must learn so that all of us understand what we are. Article 146 gives us or shows us how to remove a Chief Justice. And if the framers of the Constitution thought that there will never be a day that a Chief Justice can behave incompetently, they would never have had it as part of the Constitution. So once it is there, then it presupposes that we know as human beings, you will have someone who will go contrary to what the details of his or her office mandates, so that we can deal with the person. And that is why it is there. And I agree. I also disagree with anybody that thinks that removing a Chief Justice must be difficult. How difficult it is to appoint a Chief Justice? Is it difficult to put a Chief Justice there? So why must it be difficult to remove that Chief Justice? It must not be difficult from the president to the last person to remove anybody from office. Because if you were going to make it so difficult, you can have a recalcitrant person occupying a position and knowing that it's very difficult to remove him or her, mess the entire country up. Is that what you want? But rather, when the person knows that it's very easy to remove him or her, the person will behave. And that is how we must understand this whole business. Sir, I've been doing a little bit of background checks on the petitioners. You know, we have been silent about those that actually petitioned for the Chief Justice to be removed. People see some of them as just foot soldiers who do not know their left from right. A name that comes immediately to mind is Daniel Ofori. Do you know Daniel Ofori? Mr. Daniel Ofori. People's minds have not been addressed to it. In fact, he's one of the wealthiest people in this country. He has shares in almost all the financial institutions we have in this country. Be it EcoBank, be it Societe Generale, be it where. A wealthy person. So someone with such a huge stake in this country, you think can be manipulated by any political party. In any case, what is the political lineage of Daniel Ofori? Which political party does he align himself to? In fact, if you are going to look at it dispassionately, you will say he aligns with the New Patriotic Party. And you think that he has enough time at his disposal to be engaging in frivolous activities? He is a stakeholder in this country. He has seen something that he believes is not right. And that has to, must be addressed. If it's wrong, fine. If it is right, then the right processes are followed through. He raised 21 allegations of misbehavior. 21 allegations of misbehavior and 4 allegations of incompetence. What else do you want? So the president, those that are saying that the process must be stopped, they want to tell the president that in spite of all this, you get this, yes, solve it, and say, oh, no, we will not mind you. What are you talking about? He has raised these issues. The president has given a copy. In fact, at the time Ekwesefa went to court, I've been asking him this question. He was not the one who was petitioned. So how did he get to know that the Chief Justice who was petitioned had not gotten his copy, for which reason he went to court? If you are not privy or part of any process, how do you then become the spokesperson or the mouthpiece? So it means the embattled Chief Justice or the suspended Chief Justice, there would have been some conversation in that circle. For which reason Vincent Ekwesefa went to court. Now the Constitution is also so clear. So now when you read Article 146, where in Article 146 does it give timelines? That when a president receives a petition, within 2 days, 3 days, that petition must be made available to the one that has been petitioned against. So that was a premature ejaculation. That was premature. The going to court to compel the court to declare that copies of the petition must be given to the Chief Justice was neither here nor there. Be that as it may, the petition was handed over to the Chief Justice. And those that have been praising the president for adding 3 days, I also disagree. We must play according to the Constitution. If it says 7 days, 7 days. We are not here to be dashing anybody extra time so that tomorrow somebody will come and say, it's a president, I'm giving you 1 year to respond. So that if the 1 year doesn't come, we are all sitting somewhere. Now, it has to be 7 days. The Chief Justice acknowledges that matters that have been raised by the likes of Daniel Ofori were weighty. So she responded and even submitted supplementary positions on the matter. And you are sitting somewhere and saying that these are not weighty matters? Come on, we got to be serious. People have been going before judges. When we go, they treat us as common people because we believe in the Constitution. We subject ourselves to them. When the Chief Justice, someone finds a problem with the Chief Justice, you just say, oh, the office is weighty. What office is weighty? She must also submit herself to the same. But the last time she was dealing with Tadio Sori, did you watch it? That encounter? I felt sorry for Tadio Sori. But that is it. The law, that is the Constitution working. She has the power to do that. So she has submitted her responses. It was forwarded to the Council of State. Now, as a country, and this is where those that are calling for reforms or amendments to our Constitution, we must rather be suggesting to the Constitutional Review. Because the entire process under Article 146 seems to be something that is opaque, that is in camera, that is not open to the general public. So it makes room for people to put in propaganda. Now what the country must be demanding should have been the framework that led to the establishment of what? The prima facie by the Council of State together with what? The President. So that we know whether or not the establishment of the prima facie case met certain thresholds. But here you can't blame the Council of State, neither can you blame the President for not making it public, because that is not what the Constitution says. So going forward, it must be a recommendation to the Constitutional Review that Article 146 in removing the Chief Justice must be open. What is wrong with letting the public know that this is what someone has done as a Chief Justice? And what is wrong with letting the public know that this is the response by the Chief Justice? And what is wrong with meeting, showing the work of the committee live? What is wrong? So once a prima facie case was established, then the President had to put in place a 5-member committee. That one to the Constitution spells out those that has to be in. 2 justices of the Supreme Court, 3 other members who are neither lawyers, who are neither members of Parliament or neither members of the Council of State. So clear. Now you can debate as to the biases of the individual members. That's the 3 outside the Supreme Court judges, where their affinity or their affiliations lie. That way you can debate it, whether they will be biased or not. But even with that, it goes back to the Constitution, setting clear-cut guidelines to guide whoever will be appointing members of this committee so that they are not biased. I mean, we want fairness for both the petitioner and the one petitioning. Is that not the case? And this can be taken care of by the revision or the amendment of our Constitution. Now we have the 5-member committee in place. Rightly so, 2 justices of the Supreme Court, Justice Court Puaman and then Justice Asiedu. And those that are complaining, Justice Asiedu was appointed by President Nana Akufo-Addo, and Justice Puaman by John Mahama. Are they saying that these 2 were enemies? They will hate this woman to the extent that they will show biases at the committee? If that is what will happen, I'm sure the woman knows her left from right. To petition the President to get some of them recuse themselves from the committee, she has that right. Is that not the case? So what are we discussing? Why wouldn't those that are demonstrating, anyway, they have told you that they demonstrated because it's pure politics, not law. But if I were them and we had solid reason We would rather help the woman by way of giving her the best of legal representation or support, so that she go and demolish whatever allegations pertaining to misbehavior and incompetence. And at the end of the day, she comes out stronger. Wouldn't it even further our cause to rid the judiciary of all the accusations that has been leveled against it? So up to this stage, the president, in my view, is operating within the constitution. Now, where it becomes thorny, that we have heard a lot of divergent views from, once again, our lawyers, who are always creating confusion in the system. Confusion everywhere. Is that the president may suspend the Chief Justice under 14610A. That you can only exercise a discretion when you are a judicial officer. And that provision, the may there, means the president is exercising that discretion, and so needs a regulation to regulate how that discretion would be exercised. And that is what has been back and forth. All these things can be dealt with the Constitution coming clearer on it, or with some judicial rulings, so that all of us are on the same page. I have advised the Chief Justice right from day one, the embattled Chief Justice, Justice Araba Isaba Saki Tokono Gertrude, that from where I sit, my position has not changed. That if I were her, I would rather negotiate my exit and let the judiciary be in full peace. I think Professor Michael Kwe agrees with my position with his interview yesterday or so. You see, it's not every battle that you fight. It's not every battle. There are certain battles you have to leave it. And there are ample precedents in the history around the world to back what I'm saying. That Abe Fortas in the US in the 1966, when President Lyndon had appointed him to the Supreme Court, and for taking $20,000 for Wolfers Foundation and not declaring, at that time the laws of the US did not mandate that judge to declare whatever gift he was given. So he was not wrong in not declaring. But when the Democrats and the Republicans, the members of Congress, said, you are gone for a gift without declaring, though there was no law, and that we will impeach you, we will remove you from office, he looked at the circumstance, he processed what was happening, and said, for the judiciary to be strong and not to be accused wrongly, I have resigned. And today, Abe Fortas has his name intact. Where we are, that it has become a political football, it is the name Tokonu that is in the center of attraction. These politicians in the MPP who are doing radio, go ahead. Their names are not being mentioned. Their names are not being mentioned. So she must consider it. The advice is still live, and I believe that this government must also have an open arm policy, that if the attempt is made, that where it has gotten to, for the stability of the nation, I am resigning, you make room for her to resign and retire peacefully. Then we move on as a country. As we speak, the acting Chief Justice has taken full flight. The last time I went to court, I saw his stamp. He's working. Make no mistake. He's working. So nobody must create any impression that there is confusion within the judiciary. So that all of us. But the commentaries that others are running, particularly coming from our brothers in the MPP is what worries me. That you have not even gotten power, that you are threatening, that given the opportunity, you sack whoever becomes the Chief Justice. Really? As we speak, with the exception of Scott Palmer, all the justices of the Supreme Court were appointed by NPP presidents. So, when you come in an unlikely event, because the movement metamorphosing into a political party will beat any political party in the coming election. Quote me anyway. The Yellow Book is still fresh. The issues are live. The solutions are still relevant. And there is no way the Ghanaian in 2028 not listen to us. We went as an independent candidate. In 2020, we have parliamentary candidates across the country with our executives working in various polling stations and constituencies. So make no mistake. You have not gotten the power. You say when you come, even when the Chief Justice is Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, appointed by Nana Akufo-Addo, you will sack her. When the Chief Justice is Justice Asiedu, you will sack him. The Chief Justice is Yolo Kolendi, you will sack him. The Chief Justice is Paul Bafuboni, you will sack him. The Chief Justice is Ms. Gau, who have contested on the ticket of the New Patriotic Party and is at the Supreme Court sitting on cases involving the New Patriotic Party and other parties, you will sack him. As for the 7 that has been appointed by nominated by President Mahama, as for you, I don't even want to talk about your matter because you will not need any sacking letter. You have to sack yourself. Is that a smart campaign message? So to the justices at the Supreme Court and your family members, you will be making a lifetime mistake in 2028 when you go to the ballot to go and vote for a party that has already planned to sack any of you should they get the opportunity of coming to government again. It is much ado about nothing. The processes must continue. My only intervention here is that we must have a committee that is fair to all sides. You see, one of the proposals that the Movement for Change going into election 2024 brought to deal with some of these issues was that we proposed a second chamber of parliament to replace the Council of State. Okay. And why we did that was that we wanted to shift some of the powers from the president to an independent body, so that the second chamber would have been responsible for the appointment of the IGP, Chief of Defense Staff, Electoral Commissioner, Chief Justice, and so on and so forth. And if they are clothed with the power of appointing them, then they will be clothed with the power of removing them, so that it does not become that because the petition is sent to the president, then the president has a hand in it. Those petitioners, do they bear or bear the name of President Mahama? The answer is no. The answer is no. I don't want to even bring in the argument of Charlotte Osei. I don't want to bring it in. Okay. Because if you do so, then it becomes a matter of equalization. Let's look at each case on its own merit. Okay. And once we do that, we will know that if we allow the Constitution to work, it will help all of us. This is what this morning, a very sad morning, Saturday, I'll give to our listeners.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And on the matter of regulations being made to guide the exercise of this power, I think so far 2 court cases have been quoted. Gregory Afoko and then Ransford France.
They are saying those cases we are picking and choosing. And I'm saying that matters have to be clear. Because from where I sit, my understanding of the Constitution, you see, it starts from somewhere. The petition is received, a copy is given. Even the copy and then the Attorney General is what brought him that.
Yes.
So now
what is guiding the process?
Exactly. Yeah. Now the president, a prima facie case has been established. So I believe that all these processes leads to that determination that someone must be suspended or not.
Okay.
But hey, they have other views, and that is why there has to be clarity in terms of the process of removal.
Ultimately, the committee is in place. Once the committee has been set up, the president has to follow all the recommendations of a committee. The president will have no discretionary power when it comes to what the committee recommends, ultimately. A few things. One of the fallouts from the demonstration actually is also that now there's an investigation that has been opened by the Ghana Police Service into a case of assault, possible assault, by the minority leader. The minority leader says it was just reflex action. He and Ahiagba, that's their defense, that it was reflex action from him. But the video we've seen, see him actually using his handkerchief, his hand, to slap the face of a police officer. He says the police officer hit him on the chest with his palm so much so that he couldn't breathe. So that was a reflex action from him. But we'll come to Shamima shortly, because I understand her boss is celebrating his birthday today. But just a few things. Just go by a comment on Facebook. This is Musa Batua says, I totally agree with Honorable Suini. Even retired Supreme Court Judge Tatuba said it. The politicization of the Supreme Court under the Akufo-Addo administration is undeniable. His observations about the way judges are empaneled for constitutional matters and a pattern of unanimous decisions during critical political cases reflect a troubling trend. It's refreshing to hear a former Supreme Court judge speak so boldly and truthfully. He also clarified on the suspension of Justice Tokonu, stating that it does not violate any constitutional provision. It's both timely and legally sound. We need more voices like his to safeguard the integrity of our judiciary. Obama Nation, that's the name you're using. Obama Nation. I see. Says Mr. Senna, Mahamas 120 days in office is better than Nana Akufo-Addo 8 years in office. And I will score JM 95% out of 100%. Whether the demonstration or not, the Chief Justice must go. We want to rebuild Ghana. And sends regards, of course, to you, Honorable Sweeney. There's also PSA who says, please. Okay. Thank you very much for some of those comments that I'm seeing on Facebook. I'll go to the comments on the WhatsApp platform after. Haja, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to your guest, Akwesi. It's been a while. And congratulations on your recent honor given to you by the Ghana Journalists Association when they were commemorating International Press Freedom Day. Yeah. Indeed, we grew up watching you. So to be sharing a platform with you is indeed an honor, and thank you for the work you've done for Ghana, for the press, and the work you continue to do till date in shaping public discourse so that we would really have, discourse that is informed, that shapes opinions rightly, and ultimately citizens are able to take the right and make the right choices and decisions. So we honor and we celebrate you as well. Also this morning, I want to quickly also extend my deepest, condolences on behalf of the government communication team to the family of Ambassador Sampi. As has been variously said, he was a real patriot and comrade through and through. I always receive feedback from him anytime I'm on air. And I was on a committee that he was a chair of, and he did show genuine interest in the growth of the young people that, came into contact with him. And I think for that, his legacy would continue to live on. I also want to say happy birthday to my boss, Felix Kwachiofosu. Today is his birthday. We wish him well. I think Felix is one of the young communicators with a depth and grasp for issues, complex issues. He's able to communicate them, and a lot of us communicators are inspired by his ability to, recall figures, facts, and context of various sectoral issues, transcending long periods of time, So for some of us, we are still struggling to learn figures and remember figures without reference. I think that's a very brilliant talent, and he does it in a very humble, non-assuming way. So we celebrate him, and we wish that God will continue to guide him even as he, leads government communication unit. Some good news this morning that I just read from his page is that Standard & Poor has just upgraded Ghana's credit rating. So it's been a good week for us at the presidency, and we want to say a big thank you to the people of Ghana for the positive way they received our 120-day social contract report. Of course, the conversations are going, the debates are ongoing, and it's welcome. It's a renewed, it's a revival. In fact, you would notice that there seems to be a true reset revolution going on. And as Nkrumah says, revolutions are brought by men who think as men of action and act as men of thought. And it's because of the thoughts, the deep thinking behind the reset agenda. That is why we are beginning to see these positive signs. And we are praying that with the code of conduct and the internal accountability mechanism that His Excellency has put in place, if there should be any mistakes, that would affect the forward trajectory and, the forward movement of this government in terms of our achievements. It wouldn't be, and it shouldn't be, from our own members, because again, we are all being invited to be aligned by the vision and the values of integrity of service, of non-corruption, and responsiveness to the needs of the people of Ghana. If we're able to do this substantially, I think that this legacy mandate would truly consecrate the NDC in the hearts of many Ghanaians to know and believe and fully accept that the NDC as a political party and philosophy is the better governance vehicle for the people of Ghana, because again, it always drives a redistributive mechanism to bring opportunities across all sectors of our society and all classes of our people. So we are very happy at the achievements we have chalked so far. So far, so good. And we thank Ghanaian people for engaging and accepting the invitation of His Excellency that is a new era of freedom, and freedoms of speech and expressions are allowed, and freedoms after speech and expression especially, are allowed. And we are glad that it had to take the New Patriotic Party to test the integrity of His Excellency in that way, whether he meant what he said when he announced to all Ghanaians that they should feel free in his era to speak and engage and protest in whatever way, even though for some of us we think that we should also engage in responsible opposition and responsible protest, as and when the need arises. So they have tested it, and I think that they are now convinced that indeed it's a new era, because they initially organized a group of young people to protest against Galamsey, and nothing happened to them. I think there was an expectation that, again, as we have seen in the past 8 years, the security agencies would be used to clamp down on that protest march. Nothing happened. They were given their right, and they were not rounded up, and thrown into cells for weeks on end, and actually be prosecuted for exercising this inalienable right as citizens. We didn't do that. And the trauma that the young people who were dealt this way by the previous administration is something that they are still recovering from. His Excellency is not going to put any young people or any young person through that, trauma. We're also happy that that was not enough. The minority group also decided to go on a protestation to save the judiciary. And I think that one of the things that eases my heart is that we can trust the Ghanaian people to understand and to differentiate between good or bad. Because it's these same Ghanaians who have returned this resounding mandate that is seeing His Excellency on this reset agenda. So they can read the lines, they can see when actions are, justifiable and when actions are not. And for me, the fact that the New Patriotic Party seems not to have learnt the lesson that the people of Ghana, whom they will be going back to in 2028, to possibly redeem themselves, they still haven't quite learned the lessons. And every day they keep wanting to justify their mismanagement and misgovernance that saw the levels of deteriorations not only in the economy, in the quality of our lives, but in our institutions, including the judiciary. Is it not rich that it is the New Patriotic Party that today will be saying they are demonstrating to protect the judiciary? The judiciary that they themselves are the reasons why the dignity of the judiciary is today in question. The judiciary that they themselves took actions to corrupt, to influence, they packed the courts, and they gave all indications that for them their interest was to know the judge and not to have a strong brief. They are the same group of people under whose watch perceptions of corruption of the judiciary have seen an all-time high. And it's not NDC that says this. It is the independent institutions like Afrobarometer that continues to put the judiciary at the highest ranking of institutions perceived to be corrupt, and deteriorating in terms of the public eye. The optics of empaneling a Supreme Court, panel to determine a political, case within a day was glaring. And it didn't work to the advantage of the New Patriotic Party when they were in government then. Because right-thinking voices spoke out. Those voices were not NDC voices. Those voices were objectively neutral voices that have been consistent in their advocacy for the restoration and the, protection of our governance as well as our judiciary. They spoke out. People like Professor Kweku Azar. Because in sharp contrast to a matter involving the breach of the rights of a whole constituency in the matter of SAL, which was unable to be determined by the same judiciary, everybody would have a question to answer. How are you able to resolve such a matter within hours? And a matter involving an entire constituency would still be in the courts 4 years on. A complete disenfranchising of a constituency. It didn't work to the benefit of the judiciary. So question is, in whose interest is the New Patriotic Party acting when they go on a protest march to protect the judiciary? I think that the judiciary should rise up, because any day that the NPP decides to use the judiciary as an avenue to try to redeem their tattered image is a day that further reduces the judiciary in the eyes of the ordinary Ghanaian, because they obviously cannot be acting in the interest of an institution that they are the primary, primary cause for that deterioration. And I think the judiciary must speak up and dissociate themselves from these actions that further reduce the image of the judiciary in the eyes of well-meaning Ghanaians. They must speak out and dissociate themselves. They must dissociate themselves and speak out against the anglings of groups like GBA that have been, literally monopolized by a certain micro group and attempting to use the Ghana Bar Association again as an instrument to, do the hatchet job for the New Patriotic Party. It is time in this reset agenda for all, great lawyers, great judges in our, legal system, including our judiciary, people with conscience and integrity who have worked for so many years, that they must be interested that no group of people come and use the instrument of their power, their positional power, to, erase. And every day now, all the hard work of all of these justices of our courts, from the High Court right to the Supreme Court, the judiciary is in the public, for all the wrong reasons, they must be interested in dissociating themselves from these actions. The New Patriotic Party, because we run a democracy, we must be interested in how they are frustrating themselves. This week, I was on your show on Radio Gold, and somebody also asked me whether or not they are frustrating government. I said they cannot be frustrating government. I think that they are frustrating themselves, because this is a time for them to do some real house cleaning and to look internally at the things. And members of the administration of their own party have come out to say that they have lost road, that long ago the New Patriotic Party lost road in terms of what they truly stand for, and that money and grandstanding has become the bane of the party's deterioration. 88 MPs is all that you could do for the last elections. Those are germane things that require your attention. But to the extent that they insist to be unnecessary nuisance and distraction to the cause, what we as government intend to do is to focus solely on delivering the mandate that we have, so that ultimately at the end of the day, when the people of Ghana compare the NDC government to the NPP, they will be left in no doubt at all as to which group of people have actually restored and reset and revitalized our institutions of state, including our accountability institutions. That is the focus of government. And I think to a large extent, so far within the 120 days, we have proven through the leadership of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama that there is commitment to this renewal, and will continue to act to reset this country.
And of course, when we come to the 120 days, I'll actually start with you. Anyway, but we'll get there. We have to conclude this particular one. We'll conclude with Comrade Kwesi Prajinia. But before we do that, a few comments from those of you who are joining us via WhatsApp and text message. This is from Aaron Shukura Oyarifa. Says, good morning. Honorable condolences to the family of Honorable Sampi. I had the honor to meet him in India at a program about India and Ghana in 2012 when he was the Ghana ambassador to India. He was such a lovely person. May he so rest in peace. Senator, coming to your discussion. Now we have a president who is always on his feet and after his own words. So Ghanaians should rest assured that he will deliver. President Mahama is not the type of who sleeps on his duties and wakes up to praise his appointees for keeping money under their beds. He is not a president who says there will not be haircut, but there was. We know where the children are. They will be brought to their parents alive, being, but at the end of the day, their bones were brought to their parents to be buried. I rest my case. That's Aaron who sent that. Aaron, thank you very much for that comment. This one says, I want to use this opportunity to wish Honorable Felix Kwachofoso and Honorable Emmanuel Amma Kofibo a happy birthday. God richly bless you and grant them both their hearty desires. Adum sent that from Cape Coast. Two very big birthdays today. This one says, I understand from government circles that the president says they cannot organize parties or something.
Oh, why?
This one is from Snare says, I'm interested in the code of conduct in section 1.53 on the interest of family and personal friends, as I have started reading. If Ghana has also a code of conduct in addition to this one, which I believe the president's own has been tweaked to what's already there, then with all due respect, some people have taken unfair advantage of our institutions and our dear country. They owe this country their sweat in giving back absolutely to the building of our dear country. Culturally, the A and B point, especially the point B, they must see how to deal with it. And Senator, please let your panel address 1512, also at section 1 on the issue of gifts. I've seen the president has given his car gift to the state. Finally, Senator, please tell Mr. Solo that truly is not every battle you fight, but in Ghana, the battle of position for power to survive you fight. Let the Chief Justice fight. That's from Snet, who said that. Snet, yeah. This is from where I sit. Some people at the Electoral Commission were working with more than 7 soldiers by now will be having sleepless nights. Sami Nadenta sent that. Sami says, good morning. Sana, please tell Hajad, okay. Hey. This matter. Okay, I will tell her after the show. I'll draw her attention to the message sent to me. Alasan Amdan from Nyoini, he says, I find it both intriguing and baffling that some lawyers aligned with the NPP suggest the Chief Justice should remain in office while investigations into alleged misconduct are ongoing. I'm not a lawyer, but from a layman's perspective, it seems obvious that allowing someone to remain in position of power, especially the highest judicial office, while they are being investigated, raises serious concerns about impartiality and the potential to influence the process. With new positions emerging, one has to wonder what kind of legal training supports such a stance. Thank you very much for the comment. Sualiso, Governor from Tamale, says, please, well, if you see, just when I have the opportunity of reading your message, you actually didn't send the message, you were complaining. So I think there are many messages coming on WhatsApp at a go. So send the message, maybe repeat it. If I get it, I'll read it for you. But thank you for those messages. Keep them coming. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I mean, first of all, I feel very, very uncomfortable being here this morning. And the reason for the discomfort is just that something is happening in memory and honor of Sampi, and I'm unable to be there. The fact that he would have done what I'm doing today is not comforting enough. And I like everybody else has said, to extend condolences to his family and his friends and his comrades. I think maybe to some extent, my own conscience will be freed a little bit if I dedicate this program to his memory, so that this program is seen as part of the effort at Sakama to pay some respect to him. You know, I've known Sampi for probably about 40 to 50 years, you know, and I know him very well. And I've always known him as an advocate of the philosophy of Nkrumah, and very, very passionate about Pan-Africanism and so on. Many people know him differently, but this is how I've known him. Now, Sweeney, the 1992 Constitution guarantees unfettered right to demonstrations. The fetters to demonstration were actually introduced by the National Democratic Congress in the Public Order Law. And I still believe that it is time to throw that Public Order Law out of the window. It's a law which clearly set out to limit the right of people to demonstrate. And in practice, it has not made any sense at all. Indeed, on many occasions, when citizens have attempted to demonstrate, in fact, on the majority of occasions, about 99% of occasions, the police has come up with some reason why the demonstration cannot take place. It is either the venue for converging is a security zone, or the venue for the delivery of the final declarations and resolutions and so on is a security zone, or that the police is not in a position to marshal sufficient numbers to protect the demonstrators, or that the date of the demonstration is such an important day that demonstrators cannot be allowed to demonstrate for all kinds of reasons. What they used to do was to go to court ex parte and to get an injunction, and they always succeeded. Until one judge decided that that application should come on notice. Even that judgment, nobody has worked with that judgment. So we're still getting ex parte applications approved and so on. I think it's important to revisit the Public Order Law and to restore what the 1992 Constitution sought to do, and that is to grant unfettered, rights to people to demonstrate. Now, what are demonstrations meant to do? I think one of the things that demonstrations set out to do is to show the popularity of the cause which is being pursued. Is put faces, human beings, numbers behind demands to show that it is not only the 3 or 4 people who address a press conference who believe in that cause, and that there may be thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of people who share those opinions and so on. So in testing demonstrations for quality, there are things that we need to look out for. And that is for every demonstration. You need to test it for quality. Is it a popular demand? Is it an unpopular demand? What numbers are mobilized around the ideas and the demands and so on? It's important always to do a quality check. Otherwise, governments will have to agree with every demand that demonstrators make. Yes, sir. But because government are not enjoined to agree with every demand that demonstrators make, we have to have a means of testing for quality. And I was so very happy on the day of this demonstration that the media went out there in the street and tried to find out from the demonstrators why they were there. And so, Hini, I know you listened to some of those interviews. And those interviews were exceptionally revealing. Indeed, from my understanding of the interviews, what I heard from the interviews, it did appear that less than 1/3 of those who participated in the demonstration were actually rallying behind the demands of the New Patriotic Party. And if I'm wrong, tell me. A few of those who were interviewed said, we are here to demonstrate because we don't have jobs. That's telling. That's revealing. A woman who was interviewed said, look, my sister has been sick for a very long time and we don't have enough money to take her to hospital. That's why we are here demonstrating and so on. So from the reasons that the demonstrators gave, it is doubtful whether the hundreds who poured out into the streets were really mobilizing behind the demands of the New Patriotic Party. But you see, the leaders of the demonstrations themselves also made it quite clear that the case of the Chief Justice was clearly a ruse. That was not the purpose of the demonstration. I happen to have been on one radio platform with my good friend Richard Ahiagba. And Richard Ahiagba said in plain language that their protest was not about legality or the Constitution. I said, wow. What was it about then? He said, politics. We mobilize people onto the streets because we are pursuing a political agenda. It is not about the Constitution and it is not about legality. And he made one very telling statement. He said that if you read the Constitution, if you follow the Constitution, if you follow legality, you cannot fault the president. This is the chief spokesperson of the New Patriotic Party. This is not Solomon Owusu. This is the chief spokesperson of the New Patriotic Party actually telling us that the protest is not about legality or was not about legality, is not or was not about the Constitution, but plain politics. I said, wow. But you see, this position was followed up by another statement which is most interesting. Many of the leaders of the New Patriotic Party, including the General Secretary, then came out to say, look, we are protesting because President John Dramani Mahama will go for a third term. So what are we protesting about? Is it because the Constitution is being violated? No. Is it because some law is being turned upside down? No. It is because somebody didn't sleep well, or some people didn't sleep well. They had very bad dreams, and in the course of those dreams, it was revealed to them that President Dramani Mahama will go for a third term. So I asked them, where do you get this from? Has the president said that he's going for a third term? Answer is no. Has anybody who can speak on behalf of the president, and there are people who can speak on behalf of the president, and for example, if the vice president came and said, look, the president will go for a third term, we'll take it seriously. Or if the national chairman of the party were to make such a statement, or if Felix Ofosu-Kwakye were to make such a statement, so we'll take it seriously. Has any such person told us that the president wants to go for a third term? They say no. So what is the basis of this assumption? And there's no basis. So, in one breath, they're telling us that they're not demonstrating because the Constitution has been violated. They're not demonstrating because they love the Chief Justice so much, and so on, but simply because somehow, miraculously, through some magic, through some mind reading, something, they have come to the conclusion that the president will go for a third term. What a waste of time. Waste of everybody's time. You know, but even grant them that this may be the case. Now I've said publicly, and Suhini, I want you to take me seriously on this.
No, it's okay.
Hey, sorry.
It's okay.
But Suhini and Senna, you are interchangeable.
Anytime I want to show, I need
No problem. You are interchangeable.
Yes.
Mark this day. I promise, and I mean that promise, that if ever there's an announcement that President Mahama is going for a third term, he will be vigorously opposed. And I will join that opposition. You understand? So let nobody be deceived. As for the option of a third term, it's out. There's no reason why any president anywhere, not just in Ghana, would amend the national constitution in order to seek a third term. I think it's an insult to the population. Well, the statement that makes is simply that the president is irreplaceable. He's so special that nobody out of the 32 million Ghanaians can replace him. And I think that that's a huge insult which, if ever came up, needs to be resisted. And I make that promise today. However, I firmly believe that this useless and needless speculation about what the intentions of the president may be and so on, look, it's not a matter over which we should be mobilized to divert attention from the crucial issues that confront us into demonstrations and so on. It's a bloody waste of time, complete waste of time. And I'm not going to lend myself to that. The other thing that I do, and we should all do, is to test for logical consistency in the statements that our leaders make, in the statement that our politicians make. And unfortunately, in this matter, all my tests for logical consistency have failed. Listen to the New Patriotic Party and its leaders. And they argue, quite boldly, that Justice Bafuboni is likely to be a beneficiary of decisions of the Supreme Court on the suspension or eventual removal of the Chief Justice, and therefore must be stopped from sitting as the presiding judge of the Supreme Court. This is the argument they make. But you see, this case is ongoing. There are petitions before the Supreme Court, and they are insisting that the suspended Chief Justice should be reinstated. And if she's reinstated, she will have the power to empanel the court, and she will have the right to sit on the panel. Can you see the logical inconsistency? So in one breath, when it comes to suspended Chief Justice, she has a right to sit on panels to make determinations in petitions before her and the bench over her own case. But as for Justice Bafuboni, he cannot. What logical inconsistency. Unbelievable. And the whole case is replete with logical inconsistencies. This is only one, just to demonstrate the extent of the logical inconsistencies. Now, again, beyond the logical inconsistencies, there is what you may call historical inconsistency. And that's also very interesting. The very people who today are claiming that, look, the president has to take some actions when he receives a petition in order to make the process transparent. The president, for example, ought to ask for the Chief Justice's version of events and so on, were the very people who 8 years ago were arguing very strongly that the president only acts as a conveyor belt. Now, their argument is that the president is no longer a conveyor belt. When he gets a petition, he has to read the petition, he has to ask for the version of the person against whom a petition has been made, and has to make a determination about the weight of the petition, even before reference to the Council of State. What historical inconsistency is this? Unbelievable. But they have no shame. They go on and do this, and they do it in our face with raised shoulders and so on. And I'm very worried, about that. Now, when they went through Article 146, and we've gone through Article 146 several times today, I don't intend to go through Article 146, and found that the president could not be faulted on adherence to the provisions of Article 146, they then just quickly jumped to Article 296. Very interesting. It has only 3 provisions, so I can read it. It's not long. It says, where in this Constitution or in any other law discretionary power is vested in any person or authority, A, that discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. Fair and candid. Underline those words. B, the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary. And I think you all understand what arbitrary is. Capricious or biased, either by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike. Personal dislike. And shall be in accordance with due process of law. And C, where the person or authority is not a judge or other judicial officer, there shall be published by a constitutional instrument or statutory instrument regulations that are not inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution or that other law to govern the exercise of the discretionary power. It's clear. Now here is the analysis. If you look at Article 146, Article 146 insists that at every stage, the president ought to be acting in consultation with the Council of State. And that in the final stages, the decision of the 5-member committee is mandatory. The president has no discretion in that matter. He cannot say yes or no to any part of the recommendations of the 5-member committee. That's clear. So show me where personal interest and bias lies in this matter. First, look at the Council of State. The Council of State is made up of representatives of 16 regions. Elected, thank you, Sohini, elected, 16 regions. It is made up of personalities, including the former Speaker of Parliament, who now sits as Chairman of the Council, and a former Chief Justice, and others who are deemed to be representing institutions like the Police Service, the Ghana Armed Forces, and so on. National House of Chiefs, and so on. So show me how these ingredients in Article 296 can be manifest in the actions of the president. It is not possible. Personal interest can never arise. Personal prejudice can never arise. Because Article 146 itself has all the ingredients to check against what is described in 296, which devalues the essence of the exercise of discretion. So what are they talking about? I can't understand. I just can't understand. The only way you can understand what they are saying is to listen to them and to take them serious. And if you listen to them and you take them serious, they are not worried about legality or the Constitution. Their prime objective is to play politics. Okay. And in playing that politics, they cannot rely on the Constitution. They cannot rely on Article 146 or even 296 to play the politics. They can rely only on their imagination, their supposition that the president may run for a third term. That's the only way. Now, there's something else which is extremely interesting. I'm sure you've all listened to them. They say, look, our worry is not so much about the sitting Chief Justice. Our real worry is that if we succeed, if we allow the government or the constitutional processes to end up in the removal of the Chief Justice, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission may follow. So let's stop it now. You know that? And that is interesting. Let us say, for the purposes of discussion, let us say that at the end of the day, evidence is established to show that the Chief Justice was incompetent. And that the Chief Justice engaged in acts of misbehavior grave enough to warrant her removal. Let us say that that is established. It may not be the case. But just in case that becomes the case, you understand? I will say that because the Chief Justice may have abused her office and so on, if another head of a constitutional institution misbehaves, does acts for which the Constitution calls for impeachment, the person should be left untouched. Is that the argument? Where is the sense in it? No sense. No sense, complete no sense. So if the Chief Justice has misbehaved, has done acts of omission or commission which the Constitution insists, for which the Constitution insists he must be removed from office, and she's removed from office, if any other person having or being a member of another constitutional institution behaves as the Chief Justice, the person must go.
Yes.
How is it difficult to understand this? Now they are hoping by raising these flags, people would then become immobilized. They are hoping that by raising these flags, when and if the Chief Justice is removed from power, then members of the Electoral Commission and other constitutional bodies will be saved whether they do right or wrong. But that's a daydream. It's a daydream because the Constitution is clear. The Constitution does not say that when you remove the Chief Justice, you cannot remove the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. The Commission does not say that if you remove the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, you cannot remove the chairperson of the National Commission on Civic Education, and so on. So they should stop the daydreaming and come face to face with the Constitution and try. And I know they understand the Constitution. You know, it's not that they don't understand the Constitution. They are simply playing the politics that they themselves say they are playing, and it is clear. But Sohini, the other thing they have done is to come up and say, look, what is contained in the petitions are frivolous. How do you remove a whole Chief Justice for the reasons contained in the petitions? Now I'm sitting here and I cannot say for sure that what has been published as the petitions are the petitions. I don't know. But some material has been published as the petitions, upon which people are making all kinds of arguments. So let us assume, for the purpose of this discussion, that what we are seeing as the petitions are indeed the petitions. And I hear them saying that in Tree, I mean, one of them said in Tree, that somebody has written a petition, a former police officer who is a lawyer has written a petition. And that what the petition seeks to do is to get the Chief Justice removed because the Chief Justice reprimanded him. That's false. Completely false. The petition which I have read says that the Chief Justice on her own, not as head of the panel, on her own, after the case had been determined, ordered his arrest and detention arbitrarily and illegally. That is the gravamen of the petition. Now, is anybody telling me that the arbitrary arrest and detention of a citizen is a light matter? It is not. It's a grave matter. It may well be that this committee may come up and say that, look, it is not true that the Chief Justice arbitrarily ordered the detention, illegal detention of this police officer, and therefore the Chief Justice should come back to her work. That's for the committee to decide. It's not me who is going to decide that. But the allegation is grave enough to lead to the determination of a prima facie case. You understand what I'm saying? So they bastardized the petition in order for the petition to look frivolous. The other day, I saw somebody else standing, not sitting on television, actually standing on television, and saying that they say that the Chief Justice took, is it $10,000 per diem for her daughter to go abroad and so on. But how can we be so cheap that the Chief Justice actually refunded part of the money And that in other instances, people travel and they don't refund anything at all. So rather than castigate the Chief Justice, we should be praising her. Wow, is that the issue? Is this a frivolous matter? I don't know. The committee will decide. But we should allow the committee to decide. Now, if you read Article 146, it is clear, even the casual reading of Article 146 shows that the drafters of the Constitution intended the process to be confidential. Everything about Article 146 indicates very clearly that that whole process needs to be confidential. And if you want, I'll read it. I don't think it's necessary to read. Now, I believe firmly that there's a reason why the drafters of the Constitution decided that the processes ought to be in camera and ought to be in confidence. Now, the reason is that at the end of the process, that is the determination of the 5-member committee, the Chief Justice may be removed from office or may go back to office. Okay? Now, I think that the drafters of the Constitution were minded by the fact that if you're going to have a Chief Justice go back to office, she should not suffer reputational damage from the trial. So that Article 146 is intended to protect the Chief Justice from reputational damage. And that is why Article 146 makes sure or insists that things should be done in camera and in confidence. Now, friends of the New Patriotic Party are saying, no, open the hearing to television. Let's view it live on television and so on. What is the implication of that? Just imagine the kinds of allegations which can be made, some frivolous, some substantial and so on, against the Chief Justice. At the end of the day, if the committee comes and says, oh, the Chief Justice is clean, she can go back to work and so on, there will be lingering doubts in the public mind about her integrity and so on. And that becomes a burden that may not allow her to perform her duties, to the extent that the Constitution envisages and so on. But our friends from the New Patriotic Party say, damn everything, stamp on everything. Publish the petitions, publish the Chief Justice's response. Let's have open public hearings and so on. And they even go to the extent of saying that the Council of State's determination of a prima facie case should be published. When indeed, all deliberations of the Council of State are not public. Given the very nature of the matters that go before the Council of State and so on, they are not public. And they are designed not to be public in order to protect the national interest. Because the Council of State discuss weighty issues about national security and so on. But you see, this one is how do you say, is it a klanga or something? You people who speak English better than me. Klanga. They're saying that Supreme Court, Mrs. Supreme Court, not Supreme Court, Council of State decisions should be made public. We should even know the reasons behind their determination of a prima facie case to help with national security interests and so on. They are saying that. Then the Attorney General, and here we have to be very careful because it's a matter before the courts. And the likelihood of contempt is very high. And I'm going to be very, very careful not to cross the boundaries. Charges have been preferred against Mr. Edubuahini, that's his name, I suppose. And then his lawyer writes a letter to the National Security Coordinator and says that stop this trial. Because if you don't stop this trial, matters of national security will become public. So when it comes to the criminal trial of a suspect, because matters of national security may become public, don't even try him at all. They're not even saying that try him in camera, but don't try him at all. Wow. But when it comes to the determination of a prima facie case against a certain Chief Justice, waive everything, including national security consideration and so on, and make it public. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, one of the things that we are told can become public if the state insists on trying a Dubuahini is a list of people who are in opposition to the MPP, but who are eating from the bowl of the MPP, who are collecting monies from the security.
People have eaten.
Master, I think that is a very good reason for the trial to continue. Because we want to know those people. Who are those people who are eating there? Yes, the people who are in opposition and were feeding fat from the New Patriotic Party. You think we don't want to know them? Whoa, everybody wants to know them. What? You don't want to know them? We want to know them. So that's not an excuse at all. In fact, that's an incentive for knowing who they are. Anyway, look, I've also heard them say that, look, there's no constitution which is perfect. That in every constitution, some things are not there. Some very important provisions are not there. And that is why the Supreme Court must make determinations. I like to submit that the Supreme Court does not have and cannot have any power to amend the Constitution either by insertion or by extraction of anything in the Constitution. The Supreme Court will never have that power and does not have that power. There are processes for the amendment of the Constitution. So if indeed they are dissatisfied or unhappy about some provisions of the Constitution and think that it should change, they should come properly. You understand? They should come properly. So much. Their argument, one of their arguments is simply that he who appoints has influence. Or that he or she who appoints has influence and can contribute to the determination of cases. Wow, what an argument. What an argument. Because from what I know, if you look at the current membership of the Supreme Court, only one, maybe two, maximum two, were appointed by an NDC administration. So why are they worried? Following from their own logic, they should not be worried.
One.
Well, that is Scott Puaman.
Yes, that's all.
Even the acting Chief Justice was appointed by the Kufuor administration.
Yes.
So following from their own logic, where is their fear? No basis for the fear. You understand? Then they claim, and sometimes it's very interesting to listen to this, my friends, they claim that President Mahama is packing the courts. Now, when anybody makes the allegation that somebody is packing the courts, what they're simply doing is that they're saying that through the process of appointment, people are being put in the court who unthinkingly will follow the dictates of the person who is appointing them. But if that is the case, then, my goodness, they really packed and overpacked the courts. Based on what they are saying, you understand? I don't believe that their argument, can stand any test. Because in this particular case, which was determined in the Supreme Court, there was a 3-2 majority decision. The three included Yoni Kunedi, my very good friend. Yeah. I haven't seen him for years, but my very good friend. Yoni Kunedi was not just appointed by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He cut his teeth in the legal profession in Akufo-Addo's chambers. And when we used to meet in Akufo-Addo's office to plan Kumi Preku and so on, he was there, working there. He was one of our staunch allies and so on. And yet, he was part of the 3-2. Justice Bafo-Boni, appointed by the Kufuor administration, he was part of the 3-2 decision and so on. So that argument falls flat. It has no basis at all. It falls flat and so on. And they should stop making that argument because it doesn't impress anybody. I would have liked to talk about what some people have said is the misuse of the Ghana Bar Association, in order to further the objectives of those who have shamelessly hidden behind this process, this Article 146 process, to make all kinds of noises. So, and I do quality tests. And the quality test, in fact, I've been told that my figures are wrong. I used to use some figures, I'm told that they are completely wrong. I used to say that there are 5,000 members of the Ghana Bar Association. I'm actually told that there are 8,000 and more members of the Ghana Bar Association. 8,000 and more members of the Ghana Bar Association. The people who attended that mid-year bar review conference were 200, according to their own records. By the time this decision was taken, 148 of them were not there. They are left. They didn't think that this was an important matter. So 52 members took that decision. And out of the 52 members, 7 abstained. This is the quality of the decision. They are throwing about everywhere. This is the quality of the decision. And the quality of the decision also is manifested in the various contradictory statements which are coming from the same bar association. Today this, tomorrow that, yesterday different, and so on. Look, I grew up knowing that most of the time, indeed all the times, people around the world and from all cultures and so on demonstrated for their leaders to uphold constitutions, not to violate constitutions and so on. This is the first time in my history that a group of politicians are actually holding a demonstration and calling on the president to violate the constitution. Wow! They are holding a demonstration, begging the president, putting pressure on the president to violate the constitution. What kind of people are this? So you are finished.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, it's quite interesting. And it seems whenever the two of us are on the same platform.
Oh,
I understand.
Please,
but Senna, maybe before you, the exact provision I was looking for when I was making my point was 14610. Okay.
Yes.
14610.
Yes.
A. You know, if you look at the provisions before 10, it is said in consultation with, and I was telling you that I'm not a lawyer, but the little English that me too, I understand, tells me that in consultation with is not the same as in accordance with.
Yeah, it's different.
Are you getting it? So there's good reason why it is said that decisions will be taken by the president in consultation with the Council of State. But when it comes to 10, the suspension of the Chief Justice, it uses in accordance with. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't an oversight. It was to communicate a certain compulsion. Because like when you say that the judge ruled in accordance with the Constitution, it tells you that the decision is within the Constitution. But when you say that the decision was taken in consultation with somebody, it means advice is sought but not binding. Yeah. So the two cannot be interpreted to be the same. That's why I said that I do not think that the president had the prerogative to do anything else than to suspend the Chief Justice, because that article says that in conjunction, I mean, in accordance, that particular one doesn't say in consultation like others. You know, so I think that, you know, in all of this, my conclusion is that even after this process, if the Chief Justice is exonerated, I think she should resign, because the actions, the conduct, and the words of the New Patriotic Party have compromised her. Her partisan independence has completely been compromised by the way the NPP has behaved in this matter. Because clearly, they are playing politics with it, and she seems not to be uncomfortable with that. And so it only, you know, gives the average fair-minded Ghanaian the view that she is one of them, and there's nothing wrong with her being one of them. But clearly, it also means that her bias has become quite apparent.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next discussion, one of the people who I love to read comments from is Dennis Yakwete, who says, "It is tried knowledge that demonstrations are constitutionally guaranteed. But as to whether the said demonstration was really apt to have been led by no less a people but lawyers was the problem. Indeed, given the matter in question, I am more than certain that but for the politics, not even 1100 LLB students will stage such a pitiful demonstration. Obviously, the MPP, in spite of their regrettable narcissism, are still living in their self-imposed slumber and denial. And I can only hope that our judiciary is mindful of the partisan tangent the MPP is heading on the said issue, and not to be infected with such deadly virus of self-imposed ignorance and naivety. As for those doing the Koshoko women argument, to suggest as though Madame Charlotte Osei and a former Shraj boss were men, the least said about them, the better. May the law rule." That's from Dennis Yakwete. There's Alaji Lawal in Osamankese who says, "Good morning, Uncle Kwesi Brad. Is it too late for you to considering your age to read law? You seem to be more pragmatic and concise when it comes to the interpretation of the laws. And I personally understand you more than most of the learned men." You know, that's quite interesting. I think at some point in his life as a journalist, he was a court reporter. And I tell you, when you're a court reporter, by the time you leave court, your understanding of the law will be a bit more, it will be different. It will be different. Yeah, the kind of things anyway. Anyway, we have to move on to the very next discussion. 120 days of this administration. So far, so good. The administration itself is not scoring themselves 100%. In fact, I think I had Alaji Inusa Fuseni on my show this week, and he was saying that even the assessment put you around 72%. Not really anything close to 100%. But the MPP says they'll give you 48% or something. Let me start with Haji Chamima on this.
Well, so far so very good. I think that the jury is out. We've received quite great commendations from a cross-section of Ghanaians, and it's always good to test, you know, the pulse of the people across different status within the society and different interests. And generally, I think there's an outpour of commendation. I mean, the likes of Professor Stephen Adai and some other professor have all had cause to say that indeed the 120-day, you know, promises, His Excellency has been quite efficient in the delivery of same. For us, this is not to sit and gloat over. It was to quickly put all appointees to work, because a 4-year mandate that is promising to do a lot requires a certain level of urgency in thought, in approach, in delivery and execution. And so the way you must look at the promises entailed in the 120-day social contract is a series of programs that will be initiated to serve as the foundational basis to build upon our broader policy commitments to the people of Ghana. If you take a look at our manifesto, the manifesto theme was resetting Ghana for jobs, accountability, and prosperity. So those are our 3 thematic areas. Now, if you take the 120-day social contract, there's a series of promises that cut across some specific sectorial areas, which, in our view, were priority areas to begin the administration with. So what are those priority areas? You would see promises around good governance practices to reset the tone of governance. So we made a promise that we're going to have the leanest and most efficient administration with not more than 60 ministers. And in fact, we have made all of these deliverables with 56 ministers. So there are 4 ministers who have delivered some major actions, even without the support of deputy ministers. That is the efficiency that we are speaking about. We made a promise that within 14 days we would have a cabinet in place. It was done. And everyone agrees that at least within this 4th Republic, if we might want to even go beyond, but looking at the 4th Republic period, this administration has formed the structure, the core structure of its government in record time, in comparison to all governments. We have finished the appointment of MMDCs, and many of them are going through the approval, process in their various, districts and metropolitan assemblies. I think that is quite significant in measuring efficiency. Some have a misconception of the 120-day promises as an end. It's not end. There are processes involved, and within those processes are the molecular events that should take us to the promised land. So if you take again a look at how you must appreciate it, beyond the good governance issues that has to do with the code of conduct that should align and guide appointees, that has to do with the formation of our core government, that has to do with the various reviews in question. That is how you see it. Then we have provisions or promises around the economy. So these are the priority areas. Let us have the software. The software is that these are our values. This is how we are going to lead as a government. This is the behavior and conduct expected of all of you through the code of conduct. And on the day that the president announced and launched the code of conduct, he did what? He gave a sanction against some appointees who have already breached, a guideline regarding deadlines, for example. And so we know that there are some ministers today who failed to file their asset declaration forms by the 31st March deadline, who are now going to forfeit 3 months of their salaries, including an extra month that all appointees are supposed to donate their salaries to the Mahama Care, the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, which bill, as we speak, is complete and awaiting Parliament to resume for the Mahama Cares bill to be presented to it. It is also to now look at the economy promises. The last elections was all about the economy. It was about the hardships that Ghanaians were going through on a daily basis. It was about the incomes that had been eroded. It was about the pensions, of pensioners that had been taken away from them. It was about the effects of the bad governance on the lives of people, including those who even lost their lives as a result of that pain and hardship. So every sensitive government must be, as a matter of course, interested in what sets of measures to immediately put in place to ease these burdens. And those were the basis of our promises to abolish what we described as the nuisance taxes. There were about 4 of them. And so we have done all the 10% levy on bed winnings, the e-levy. The only one remaining is the COVID-19, And that is also part of the process I explained. So even though as we speak there are engagements and the process about rationalizing our entire VAT regime is ongoing at the Finance Ministry, and also because the COVID-19 is intricately linked to our existing IMF program, it doesn't lend itself to just a quick fix of abolition like those other taxes. So even with that, we can report progress. So on all of our promises, we are either have done them or they are in progress. That's how we see it. So really, none of these promises have not can be described as having not been touched. Because when meetings are in place, when planning is in place, when reports are in place, where assessments are being done, you can't say that nothing is being done. Even with the vexed matter of Galamsey, which comes to the social programs that we put in. So I'll come to Galamsey shortly. So you think about the good governance, promises. You look at our economy promises, the promise to hold a national economic dialogue, to present a very transformational budget, which is today beginning to yield positive results as we speak. Interest rates are coming, inflation is coming down to 21%. We are hoping that it will reflect in interest rates pretty shortly. The Bank of Ghana is assuring that all the modalities are being put in place to reflect that as we speak today. The forex gains many businesses have made, including government. In the budget, we pegged our debt obligations that we had to meet. The exchange rate was pegged at 16%. And today it is $1 to 13 cedis. So that's some gain that we're going to make, which would give us some breathing space as a government to do what? To be able to inject into our social sectors. As we speak today, as I said earlier, Standard & Poor's has upgraded our credit rating. That's a very positive sign. At the recent IMF spring meetings, there is a certain outpour of confidence in our trajectory in terms of the plans we are putting in place and the commitment that is coming from our economy managers to go through the process with a more disciplined approach. Some have said, but you're not yet spending, you're not yet paying your bills and all of those things. I'm saying that there are a series of programs that are being put in place to ensure the prudent use of our resources. So there are some gains that are going to be made. Again, with the economy, we are looking at allocations that have been made in the budgets that are tangible allocations that are going to go to some of these specific programs that we have spoken about. So the social programs around job creation, which is one major promise that we have made. We have launched these programs. We couldn't have launched on nothing. There would have been series. Look, I'm saying that the first 2 months of this 4 months administration was about ministers being vetted, being sworn in. So the real work, if you look at it, commenced, let's say, some 2 months after this administration. So 2 months, within 2 months, ministers through the task force. So the president launched a task force on the 120-day, promise, which was headed by Madam Valerie Sawyer, and they went straight to work. So even with the announcement of the ministers, it's some deliberate intentionality behind it. A lot of the ministers that would have been under portfolios that had to deliver on some of the promises, they were some of the first announcements to be made. So the finance minister, the energy minister, you would see they were part of the first announcements that were made that went through the vetting quickly so they could do what? Start the work and start the negotiation that today we're beginning to see. And let me announce that Guta has, as of yesterday, given indication that on Monday all their members are supposed to reflect all these positive signs with our indicators and our exchange rate in the general prices of goods and services. That as a goodwill measure. In fact, I was with Charles on one of a media program, and we said you must also respond to these positive signs, and they did tell us that they were going to meet. So the outcome of the meeting is that all Guta members should be by Monday reflecting these positive sides in the economy by also doing what? Reducing prices of goods and services. So Ghanaians will begin to, feel these positive signs in their pocket. We're also talking about the job promises. We have launched the Ejumawura program, the National Apprenticeship program, as well as the 1 million coders program that has budget allocations of about 100 million. The apprenticeship program has an allocation of about 300 million. The Ejumawura program, which is really the big push for youth entrepreneurship, over 20,000 applicants would be received, taking through various training, and then 10,000 viable businesses will be supported with capital injections, with the hope that they too will be able to employ, even if 10,000 businesses, each of them is able to employ an extra person. That's just 20,000 sustainable jobs we're creating, because these businesses are small to micro enterprises that are responding to needs and wants within their various communities. So there's such a certain thought process, a very thoughtful process behind this program. Hopefully we'll be able to implement them in a way that will be sustainable and will be in sharp contrast to some of these programs we've had in the past, because we put in so much money and resources, and these businesses are not sustainable. We're also looking at the other programs, and if you have questions to answer, you can you can. So coming back to the environmental issue, because it was a major priority matter, and that's the big matter of galamsey, and whether there has been commitment on the side of this government to fight galamsey heads on. And the question is yes, and everybody who is watching the fights against galamsey would come to the similar conclusion that there is commitment from all government actors. Now, what we must also communicate is that we're not a party of angels, neither are we a party of all angels and all devils. So if there are individual members of the NDC who continue or expect to be allowed to engage in illegal mining, they will, once they are found, they will pay the full price for that breach, because the direction is that no member of government should be found engaging in illegal mining, especially mining in forest reserves. And one of the lowest hanging fruits with regards to the amendment of LI 2462 was removing the presidential powers of giving out and signing out licenses to companies to mine in forest reserves. This is what happened under the previous administration that saw the proliferation of companies besiege our forests and begin, the devastation, which government now describe as environmental terrorism. So the joint task forces of the military, security, immigration, customs, all of them are working together to clamp down on the destruction of our forest reserves. And we have launched the Blue Water Initiative as well as the Tree for Life initiative, which are restoration mechanisms to at least those communities that we have claimed back from the illegal activity. We should begin the long, arduous road of restoring them to a semblance of their original state. We may not get them perfect, but if you look at all of these things, we have touched every single one of them. The National Scholarships Authority Bill is also ready, and that is work. Writing a piece of legislation is not a one-day thing. So we have done a lot of hard work, a lot of good foundational work, and into the next quarter it is really monitoring, evaluation, execution, and we'll begin to report on results and impact and outcomes in the lives of people. Because if we do all these beautiful things and we go to the market and the price of goods and services are so unreasonably high, we will have difficulty in explaining the efficiency of our programs. But we are doing all of these things in a spirit of true transparency and accountability, and holding the Ghanaian along with us so that they know when there are bottlenecks, when there are challenges, when there are threats to some of the programs, we are going to communicate that. And His Excellency says, let us join hands in this era and build the Ghana we want together. It is not only politicians who will do it. We require the right attitudes and mindset, even from our citizens, as they are cooperating, as they are giving us feedback, as they are criticizing us constructively, to be able to implement the set of policies that will do what? Deliver. At the end of the day, all we want to do is to live a life of dignity and to be able to eke out our livelihoods and be able to take care of ourselves and the people who are dependent on us. So this is our success story, 120 days on, and we're learning the lessons and we're moving on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In fact, very interesting the way some of the promises are couched. They are giving an indication that this is not an end, clearly, because one of the things we're trying to do when we tried an assessment, we got to a point where 7, commence drafting needed legal amendments and prepare for implementing a 24-hour economy policy under the office of the president. Now, when somebody says, I have commenced drafting needed legal amendments, how would you know? So you have to refer to the person's office. And sometimes it's difficult to even get evidence of the fact that they started that. So yes.
There was the launch of the 24-hour economy committee. So there are task forces. They've met. Buzitano has briefed the president several times, and the accelerated export and development committee has also been launched, and they are beginning meetings. So minutes of meetings are all indications of what that is happening. It's either that or nothing of that sort would have happened, and then we don't have anything to report. It means we've not even touched it, but all these promises actually have been touched.
Thank you very much. Mr. Owusu is doing some calculation here. I'm sure he will talk about it himself. We've seen the calculation, but I can't speak for him. So
it's very interesting. First of all, the president was voted for a term of 4 years, and if you do the calculation, it's about 1,460 days. So he has done 120 of that, and it's left with 1,340. What shall it profit this president if his first 120 days, according to his own spokespersons, are that high, and then the remaining 1,340 days becomes so terrible? So I don't take it that serious. I want to see him, judge him comprehensively at the end of his tenure. But along the way, we will be making the inputs, because the president's work is captured in Article 36(1). That the state shall take all necessary action to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare, freedom and happiness of freedom and what? Happiness. See, the framers of this constitution, they were very smart. That the president is supposed to make sure that I'm happy. This morning I'm not happy. In Ghana, to provide adequate means of livelihoods or livelihood and suitable employment. And suitable employment, as I speak. Effort Divine is in Volta region. He has MBA in accounting. He's still home. Our brother Papa J is in Boga. A graduate is home. Alan PSA is in Denture. He's home. We have a huge unemployment situation to deal with. So, to the extent that the 120 days has not been able to deal comprehensively with the unemployment situation, I will still, along the way, wait and see the number of people that through their initiatives will be able to enroll in our public space, and particularly the private. They are the social democrats, so they concentrate on the public space. In our case, we are with the private sector, and I believe that they have to look into that sector. Some of the promises clearly were not weighty in the first 120 days. If you tell me you'll be forming your cabinet within 14 days, if you are elected as a president, what would you do? Is it not forming your cabinet? 14 days is you can even do it within 3 days. Because before becoming a president, you would have toured the entire country, you would have worked with people, you would have known people that can work. So immediately you are giving the nod, it's a day, all of them, they are working. Because as we speak, there are certain institutions without boards. The last time I went to Exim Bank, and I saw that all of them were idle because there's no board. But these are critical aspects of the economy where people want to do business with them. They have proposals, they have to kickstart. So I believe that the president would have to fast track some of these appointments. You come to lean and efficient government. That is debatable. What constitutes lean? If like Lee Kuan Yew would say, if you are going to equalize or compare records, Akufo-Addo's administration is not a government that you must compare your records with, because they performed abysmally. It's not a yardstick. If we are going to judge the performance of John Mahama to that of Akufo-Addo, and he even beats him by 10% margin, that is a failure. And that is why the NDC itself said they were going to reset, because they acknowledge that terrible things have happened, and that cannot be the basis to measure their performance. And when you say efficient under the Fourth Republic, first of all, this administration has not ended its tenure. So it will be very, very difficult to tell me that within 120 days, your performance has been efficient than all the previous leaders under the Fourth Republic. That was tautology. I don't think it's something that we can.
In the period under assessment.
So
comparison to achievements within the same period.
So let me read.
So that's
so let me read what you
must.
Let me read it here. I don't want any interpretation. I want what is here. What is here is that constitute the leanest and the most efficient government under the Fourth Republic in my first 90 days in office. He did not say in comparison with the previous 90 days of other. So if there is an amendment, then it can be made. But the way and manner it is a non-starter. Code of conduct has been put in place. That's fair. The outcome of it is what we are all expecting. Economic dialogue. It's very easy to organize economic dialogue. If you are giving money, can't you organize it tomorrow? What are you talking about? Hold a national dialogue on education. Very easy. The resource personnel are all available. Venues are available. What is the point? You know the issues bedeviling the educational sector. So if you do it, it's not weighty. The real issues has to do with your point 13. Sana, I have been looking forward to how the government is going to deal with their 13th promise. Institute inquiries and all forensic audits into the following matters of public interest. That is, I'm a member of the public. This is where my interest is. The collapse of indigenous Ghanaian banks and financial institutions. Inquiries is only you people that know inquiries. Me, I don't know inquiries. So if I am not seeing any tangible inquiries, that's what is happening.
What would you describe as tangible? Just by way of
Later.
No, I believe in that. But you see, government to be seen to. Only yesterday you were doing what I'm doing today. You are not comfortable. You will be comfortable.
I am very comfortable.
So illegal printing of money. Illegal printing of money. This matter was so weighty. I remember the number of times the opposition then, now members in government, used it. We expect actions to that effect. $58 million money invested in what? The National Cathedral. Only yesterday I used that. Anytime I pass there, I say, how can human beings conceive for 9 months, do this to this country, and you are not seeing or hearing anything? So it's another matter. That's it. COVID-19 expenditure. COVID-19 expenditure. A matter that the former Minister of Health, Ajumameni, told us that he couldn't think straight. COVID, people even brought frontiers to come and collect our money. We don't know what is happening. So it also has to be dealt with. What else? Galamsey and Galamsey fraud is captured. Haven't heard much about it. All Africa Games, the 13th All Africa Games. You know, we petitioned the OSP those days. Kwame also together with myself, we went and submitted a petition that it did not sit well with us that the former Minister of Youth and Sports will look straight into you and I, our faces, and say that he has spent $15 million to cook wache in this country. Low-hanging fruit. Pualugu Dam, $12 million. That is captured in the Auditor General's report. It's a low-hanging fruit. We know the one that paid, we know the one that received. We have been to the site, nothing has happened. This one, what else, what other investigations are we looking for? Sputnik V, remember that matter?
Yeah.
As for the Sky Train, the Attorney General has given an indication. I take his word for it. And so I can okay it. So this is where our money is, that we need to go and bring it. The 24-hour economy. Sana, how many times did I not say that I did not see it as a policy? Because the well-being of the economy would itself lead to a 24-hour economy. But our brothers said they had other ideas. That's where they brought the Formula 133. You remember? Today nobody will forget it, you know. We all remember ourselves. And so we wish this administration very well. I am going to wait patiently and see. So beyond the 120 days, what next? That is where the matter is. I believe that the appointees would have to fast track the various processes because so much heat is in the system. The way Mana Galamsey is even being handled, a lot of Ghanaians are not happy, including myself. Because if you promise us that you revoke LI 2462, and I remember the number of times I was here with Mutala himself. Now he is the minister for what? Environment, Science and Technology. The government said they were going to amend it. What is this? The Ghanaian has to speak out. For now, we are being told that it will be revoked. Even that one has not been done. We are waiting for the revocation of that LI. We are even calling for a state of emergency. Because the Galamsey is still destroying the environment. The turbidity levels of our water bodies are still within the 12,000 to 14,000 MTU. Okay. And that cannot be, on the whole, I believe it's an above, we can give them 51% from my perspective and wait the president to increase the pace and work hard so that the teeming youth who are becoming disillusioned day in and day out will have some comfort that there will be something to fall on. Let me also commend the government, the Bank of Ghana, for, I don't know what they are doing, but in the same way that if the cedi was depreciating against major currencies, we would have blamed them. If it is falling or stabilizing, then it is only right to commend them and wish them, well, to do whatever they are doing. I believe we have to get to a point where we will even hedge our cedi to major currencies so that there will be stability in our trading front. Okay. This is the only country you can't plan, Senna. We don't have time. Okay. But one day we will come back to this 120 days and see how it will go. I will end my submission.
Let me jump to, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
you. And I understand Solo very well. Like he started by saying, the agenda is to make sure that when his movement gets a license to practice as a party, it gets considered. So I can understand. You know, that's why he quickly reminded Ajay Shemima that, you are where I am now. So whatever it is, he has to find a way to criticize so that his movement can get relevance and perhaps be considered. But otherwise, I think that Solo understands what the 120 days is supposed to do. I know he does. Clearly, you cannot assess the 120 days out of context. You need to analyze it, first of all, bearing in mind that it is a self-imposed timeline. It's a self-imposed timeline. No one actually, compelled the NDC or President Mahama to do that. So you have to, first of all, analyze it with that in mind. Secondly, you also have to analyze it knowing that even if it was not said, that it was decided based on an intention to do better than we are used to. You have to understand, even if it was not said, it was decided based on an intention to do better. So if, for example, in the past, especially in transition governments, sometimes we have a government succeeding itself. It will not be a fair, comparison to make with a transition government to a government succeeding itself. in terms of the time it takes to form a government. So you need to have that also in mind. I mean, for example, when President Mahama took over from President Mills, you don't expect the same time that he used to form a government to, you can't compare it to the time he requires now to do it. The same way when President Mills took over from President Kufuor, I mean, he needed more time. When Nana Akufo-Addo took over from President Mahama, he needed more time. So it is assumed that President Mahama also taking over from Akufo-Addo will need more time. So if he decides that he is going to do less time than the previous governments did, even without saying it, you need to appreciate that. You need to appreciate that. And that for me is the reason why I think it's a measurable standard. And it is clear that he has achieved that within the shortest possible time. He's put his cabinet together, he's put his government together. And yes, some of the structures are still ongoing, but if you look at where he is compared to President Mills's first time, compared to President Kufuor's first time, compared to President Nana Akufo-Addo's first time, you see that he's moving at a very fast pace. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we are in the 5th month and most MCs have already started working. Most of them have already started working. They have been confirmed and they have started working. Boards have been put in place and they have started, taking decisions. Yes, there are still some that are yet to be constituted and all of that. And for me, Sena, what is important is even the level of confidence that President Mahama has shown in the youth of Ghana. I mean, let us not gloss over it. It was not part of the 120 days promise, but it is amazing when you look at every sector of government, the opportunities that are being given to young people. And it is just my sincere prayer that those of us trusted with this responsibility will not fail future youth, because our performance, our commitment to excellence is what will, if you like, motivate future leaders to want to give more opportunities to young people. And I think President Mahama deserves tons of commendation for gambling, because I call it a gamble, with the youth of this country. And we must not, dare fail him and fail the people of Ghana. And look at, even what critics are saying about President Mahama's 120 days. You heard my sister Shemima speak of Stephen Adai and others have all made the point that, look, President Mahama is really, impressive. These are not people who have kind words for the NDC and President Mahama. So when they begin to say this, I mean, yes, some of us do not really take their words seriously, but on this occasion, because you didn't expect that from him, if he says it, it is perhaps because he has been moved to the point of accepting and stating the truth about how President Mahama is moving. And there is no way you can fault President Mahama when it comes to his commitment to his promises, the promises that he has made. I mean, Solo is talking about unemployment. That is the reason why the Jumawura, pledge has been fulfilled. That is why the Youth in Apprenticeship program has been launched. That is why portals are out there for people to begin to apply. That is because he knows that one of the pillars of his campaign was jobs. And so it is part of his 120 days, and he has not glossed over it. He has not slept on it. He has actually made moves to begin. I'm not saying to end it, but to begin to provide jobs and some level of income for the teeming youth of our country. And he also is very well aware that one of the reasons why the people of Ghana overwhelmingly voted him the way they did was his commitment to the fight against corruption and the need for him to ensure that there is accountability in his government. And again, a self-imposed, if you like, what do you call it, timeline. Per the constitution, no, not the constitution, the act that governs declaration of assets. One is supposed to declare his assets within 6 months of appointment. But the president decided to self-impose and impose on his appointees a deadline of 31st March. Even when some of them, including some of us, were appointed in the middle of March, we still got punished for not meeting the 31st deadline, even though legally we have done nothing wrong. So it tells you the commitment that he has to ensure that his government is held accountable. You cannot gloss over that.
Are you going to feed?
Sorry.
The 3 months salary, are you going to feed? I disagree.
Well, you can disagree with the approach, you can disagree with the what do you call it, the punishment, but you cannot gloss over the commitment to ensure that his government is held accountable and people do not take his instructions for granted. And that, for me, is commendable. It's commendable. And then the issue of graft, you mentioned a number of them. Clearly, when he addressed the nation, he spoke of almost all the things you mentioned that are undergoing investigation. Yes, I mean, the period of investigation, especially if it is not a public inquiry that is telecast live on TV, you and I may not know to what extent the investigation is going. But for a man who we have known to be trustworthy, you should be confident when he tells you that the Minister of Health has completed its COVID-19 expenditure audit and the report is undergoing review. He said that when he addressed the nation. He also said the Sputnik V vaccine procurement scandal is under active investigation. Clearly, a commitment, demonstrating his commitment to, the 120-day, days promise that he made. The Finance Ministry, he also indicated, has launched an inquiry into the collapse of indigenous financial institutions. I mean, this is a process. It's not going to, he said he was going to initiate those investigations. It was not going to be done within the 120 days, but the commitment, the signaling is what he promised to do, and I think he has done that by the report that we have been given. The Energy and Green Transition Minister is investigating the PDS scandal. So, I mean, he tells you the people who are responsible for what, how far they have gone with these investigations, and what actions will be taken in the coming days. So clearly, I think that in 120 days, the verdict is out there. President Mahama has done remarkably well, but yes, I agree with Solo, it is insignificant compared to the number of days he still has ahead of him. And I would have wished that after this 120 days, perhaps he sets another 3 months target. I think that will actually put this government on its toes and put pressure on people to deliver at their respective, positions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm reading this because I realized when he said something, Mr. Pratt was like a little surprised. In Ghana, they say prices forward ever, backwards never. That's the thing with prices. This one says.
It's an economic
does not suggest that prices can go down by Monday.
Prices
maybe the current prices.
It's the Guta people who made that announcement.
It's never going to be
It's not realistic. This Abu from Tamale agrees. In fact, President Mahama has done well, but the price of things on our market are still high. In Tamale, here, 1 bag of cement is 150 Ghana cedis. That's Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think that the first thing to say is that it is important to be fair to President Mahama. And here I'm not even making reference to the government, because a lot of these promises were made when the government was not in position. And indeed, they were also implemented not by a government, but by him as president-elect. You understand? So it's important to get these parameters correct. And I think it's absolutely important to be fair to him. He has 4 years to run this economy, this country. And we should be careful not to judge him only on the first 120 days. It's absolutely important. It's important to be fair to the president. Having said that, I'd just like to state what I just started stating now.
Okay.
You see, if you go to the market today, most goods on the market today were not brought in under today's conditions. They were brought in under yesterday's conditions. And in economics, there's something known as the gestation period. So even if you have good policies today and the policies are working, you need to calculate the gestation period properly. It is not possible, and I insist, that it is not possible for prices to fall by Monday. And we should be careful not to unreasonably raise people's expectations, because it constitutes a danger for the government and its PR. Within the first 120 days, many significant things have happened, mostly commendable, but they are what they are. I agree with my brother Suhini, for example, that when it comes to asset declaration, none of the appointees of the president as at now has violated the constitution. Those who have not declared their assets, even as at now, have not violated the constitution. They have only not abided by, an injunction placed on them by the president. Yeah. And I think that we have to understand it within that context. Now, it's important also to note that since the Fourth Republican Constitutional Dispensation began, no president, and I mean no president, apart from President Mahama, has taken punitive action against his ministers or appointees for not meeting their obligation, constitutional or otherwise, to declare their assets. He's the only president who has done it for the first time. Okay. Now, this is not to say that everything is okay with assets declaration, because everything is not okay with assets declaration. So I remember clearly in 1991-92, the New Patriotic Party campaigned against the assets declaration regime, which excluded spouses from the declaration of their assets. I remember this very clearly. Now, the assumption was that if they ever came to power, that regime would change. It came to power in 2001, it didn't change. The NDC's campaign, which was then led by Professor Mills, also promised to change that regime. It hasn't changed up to today. Okay? And there's no promise of changing that regime up to today. So that's work to be done. It's unfinished business and so on. Now, I think that it's linked also with the publication or the launching of the Code of Conduct for public appointees. I don't think that there's anybody who can say that that's a bad step. That's a very good step. Even though, again, some of the things there are not constitutional or legal. There are no laws to back them and so on. But they clearly demonstrate the president's intent to hold persons that he has appointed accountable and to meet a certain promise that he made in the electioneering campaign. However, there are difficulties which have to be resolved. And one of the biggest difficulties that has to be resolved is the question of gifts. There's a need for further definition and further clarification. I'm happy that something has been done, but what has been done needs to be improved significantly. What do I mean? There is an injunction that those public officers appointed by President Mahama cannot receive gifts of more than, I think, 20,000. Okay? Beautiful. If you don't put that within a time context, it becomes useless and irrelevant. You understand what I'm saying? Because then, 20,000 for what duration? Is it 20,000 for 1 hour? Is it 20,000 for a month? Is it 20,000 for the year? And so on. So it's important to put it within a time context in order for it to make full meaning. You understand? So it is commendable, it is fine, but some things need to be done. You understand? Now, I see people scoring all kinds of percentages, 72, 90, 95. My brother here says 54 and so. 50, you said 51. 51. Some say 40 something. I'm not in the mood for scoring percentages. Something is happening which is significant. You have a president who appears to be meeting the promises that he made, to be fulfilling the promises that he made in the elections. Okay? Some of the things have just started, some of them have gotten far, and so on. The important thing is to put pressure on the president, all of us, to make sure that he keeps pursuing this line of action, so that at the end of his 4 years, the promises he made to the people of Ghana will be fulfilled. But you see, I'm somebody who doesn't think that just fulfilling promises is good. Because I disagree with some of the promises which were made in the campaign. And for those promises that I disagreed with, I don't want to see them fulfilled. Because I don't think that they're in the interest of Ghana, and so on. I mean, for example, in the campaign, it is true that the president promised to declare a national day of prayer and so on and so on. He did. Should he do it now? I would say no. It's a waste of our time. You understand? So he promised it. But should he do it now? I'm not sure that he should do it. You understand? The important thing is that we ought to see a clear commitment, a demonstration of commitment to do things which would lead to the achievement of all those things that Solo read in the Constitution, make people happy, bottom line. Yeah. And so far, I am convinced that the president is on the right track and should remain on the right track. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was actually impressed by the speech he delivered on the 120 day, that is stuck to giving us a progress report, not gloating. That I have done fantastically well. That was so you could measure the places where you had questions. He answered those questions and gave us updates, and so that was impressive anyway.
The president himself is very modest. I mean, one of the remarkable things about this president is his modesty, and that is why it is important for those who work for him and under him to also be modest in their appreciation of things and so on. It's absolutely important. His strongest point is his modesty, as far as I'm concerned. You know, this president's strongest point is his modesty.
Thank you. Thank you.
A quick one, just to reiterate that I was not communicating government policy about price reduction, but as I've read out to you, Mr. Charles Apia Kubi of Guta says that at a Guta meeting yesterday, they have decided that Guta and its members will from Monday begin to implement some price reduction in a spirit of goodwill to the positive signs they are seeing, and to therefore encourage government to do more and ensure greater stability of the economy so that Guta can also do more. So that is coming from Guta, not government.
Okay, thank you.
So we are hoping that is what I said. That's actually what I said in the speech. So we are looking forward to see those positive signs and implementation on the ground on Monday.
And you see, Senator, there's a way in which international politics can be very, very, very punishing to governments in our part of the world. Just in case the US and China manage to solve their problems over tariffs, the dollar will start appreciating immediately. You understand? So that's the reason why
Because apart from gold, we are really not exporting anything yet in significant quantities to the
That's why it's important to be modest and to be careful in the assessments that.
And that's why, again, I'm excited the president is himself chairing the committee that he's put up to work on our exports.
Very critical.
Yes.
And a program like these are some of the programs that will stabilize the economy.
We already have businesses that have shown interest in coming on board the 24-hour economy, and there's also work going on to put the modalities in place for the incentives. For
on paper, it looks beautiful.
The one thing the government has been encouraged to do is continue on this path of prudence, fiscal consolidation, austerity.
Yeah.
That is important. That no matter what, just be prudent. If you're prudent, you take advantage of, like what the tariff war that's happening between China and the US and many other countries, because the US has picked a fight with virtually everybody when it comes to tariffs. Anyway, today.
So remind your viewers and government that we are interested in Cabinet Dubois' expose of opposition members that went for the money.
Well, today, two of my producers are in Tamale.
They went for money. Big money they went for.
Today the first flight. Yes. That's what I was going to announce. The first flight for pilgrims that are going to Hajj this year is dispatching Tamale. So two of my producers are there. Of course, the two of them also work on Halozongo. That's Tijani and then Latifa. The two of them are there. So we wish them a safe journey to Hajj, and we pray that Allah accepts their prayers.
Amen.
They are going to report from Mecca. It's important.
Hajj Latifa.
And also today is the birthday of, like I said, Felix Kwachofosu celebrates his birthday today.
But these guys have been my friends for a very long time, and I actually didn't know that they had birthdays.
Because Emmanuel Amakofiwa also celebrates his birthday today. So that's the Natural Resources Minister.
May 9th Disaster.
No, today's 10th actually.
10th?
Today's 10th.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so today's 10th.
Mine is 20th.
Yes. So happy birthday to them. We understand you can't organize birthday party. If you decide to organize it secretly, invite us. But if we are not invited, we'll be among those who will be shouting that they should remove you for breaching the code of conduct of the president. Anyway, and also, of course, our condolence. Of course, this whole show, we continue reminding you the Ambassador Sampi, the 1 week remembrance is today. So, started at 8 a.m. We'll pass by ourselves. Our condolences to the family, and of course, we'll update you in due time what the rest of the rites of passage will be. My name is Sana Nombo. A big thank you to Kwame Kwesi Prajini, who's the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Alasan Aisuhini is Deputy Minister for Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways, and of course Deputy Presidential Spokesperson, right from the office of the President, from the Jubilee House. Hajj Shamima Muslim joined us, and of course sitting to my left is Solomon Owusu, who's a member of the movement for change. I'm Sana Nomo. We'll see you same time next week.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom.